The metaphor of a roller coaster of emotions is absolutely in full swing. A lot of people are generally feeling a sense of fatigue or being exhausted, muchly a consequence of not having a sense of when these conditions are going to come to an end. On the flip side, people who have been able to find a way of accepting the situation are able to more swiftly move towards making some personal commitments, or that to their friends, family, or colleagues at work, and that can help, battle the exhaustion and be more applied and productive in the time that they're spending at work. I think the area that we just ain't seen nothing yet in is the more social impact of these conditions, where domestic violence, people who were already suffering from mental illness that will be accentuated through these conditions, are the areas to watch, and so important for communities to be looking out for each other, and pleasing to see the government recognising the complexity of this and investing into many passionate, clever people and organisations who will be innovating and really attacking this challenge. With the long Easter weekend coming up, that's really going to impact a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. It'll be symbolic for all of us. On the one side, we'll have people who are going to get 4 days off, spend some time with family, and that is something that can improve somewhat, and people will come back to work with a level of focus and adjustment that is an improvement upon which they started on before Easter, kind of like where people can come back from New Year's with a sense of commitment or resolution that they want to push forward with. And that's something that can really bring some more strength to the workforce. On the other hand, there are also people who aren't going to get a break, and in fact are going to be working harder than ever, compensating for people who might be taking time off. Other workers on the front line, such as those working in healthcare, who will likely be busier than they ever have before. And because of this, Easter will be symbolic for different reasons, and is likely to really strengthen the identity between those people who are not getting a chance to slow down, take a breath, and increasing that sense of how much they really are putting in for the rest of us. For such groups, that level of recognition of such efforts is really most important. And again, the more challenging area will be those people who might usually have had businesses or expected business spikes at this time of year, from which they really would make a lot of important funds for their businesses to survive, but unfortunately their doors are closed. So they will be, unfortunately, at home reflecting on this, recognising the loss, perhaps dwelling on the loss, and perhaps one of the more vulnerable segments of the workforce who will see it as a success just actually getting through Easter and the next couple of months in one piece, and losing as little of their livelihood as possible, and finding ways to think about the future that they can genuinely rebuild, recover, and never have to go through something like this again. First and foremost, it's acknowledging the differences in how people are going to be experiencing Easter, and recognising people who are going to be on the front line, putting in the hard effort, not taking a back step, and doing what's required for the Australian community right now. And as much as possible, checking in to see how Easter might be celebrated in some little ways, because you do find that when people on the front line do go through these symbolic events like Easter or Christmas or birthdays or births, there are small things that can happen to help people just recognise in the best way possible this event, and if it's not evident that something is happening, to inquire some more to see who might be able to help lead a small change in standard routine so that people can acknowledge the time of year in a healthy way. Secondly, it's a really good way to check in with people. Key thing will be asking people how they are going to be spending their long weekend. It can help identify people who might be feeling more vulnerable based on that they respond. And the other piece of advice on that checking in is to really not say should, because people are going to be responding in different ways. And if those conversations can be held in small groups and allowing people to share some stories and ideas moving forward, that can be enough to give some of those people who are more vulnerable a little nudge in a direction that can be more helpful in terms of how they're framing the situation. These conversations can then be very easily continued after the Easter break to help people continue that adjustment back into the workforce, or a sense of business as usual, as the psychological adjustment is starting to happen, and we need to encourage that in the right direction. And so it will be a really critical time for leaders to be making an effort to understand what some of the personal boundaries are that people are needing to set to help be the healthiest and strongest versions of themselves moving forward. This is particularly important for people who are working from home, because the natural adjustment will cause a stronger focus on productivity to start hitting. So it's important to be setting the foundation that people have the autonomy, trust, and capacity to start setting those boundaries to help them be as productive as possible. For people who aren't getting a break, the personal boundaries are really important to help with a sense of sustainability, and that what's being learnt every single day is being capitalised upon to improve how we do business, but most importantly, how we do people, when we have to constantly deal with such a threat in our environment. So really, I guess the key piece of advice from a psychological perspective is to acknowledge Easter is symbolic for many different people in many different ways, and use it as a talking point and really help get under the surface and empathise with how people are expecting to experience this, and then how they have experienced it and what it is they really need right now. Because getting awesome at conversations that help us understand how people are experiencing the situation, thinking about it, really feeling on the inside, that's going to get us through in the most healthy way possible and come through stronger, because we can't let this disease take more than it gives us as a community at the end of all of it.